Hey folks, it's Craig here, your head of Whisky Creation, and today we're going to talk about how we spell the word whisky. So if you've ever taken a bottle of Scotch whisky and a bottle of Irish whisky and had a look at the labels together, you'll see that on the labels the word whisky is spelled differently. And this fact has caused many discussions and arguments in bar rooms and in front of fireplaces and around glasses of whisky all over the world. So today I thought we should maybe shed some light on what's going on. When it comes to the spelling of the word whisky on those labels, I suppose there are two rules that are followed internationally. Number one, here in Scotland we never use the E, so we spell whisky W-H-I-S-K-Y. The other rule is that in Ireland they always use the E, choosing to spell the word W-H-I-S-K-E-Y. And it will always be like that. We'll talk about why that is in a little while. But let's think about the word whisky itself. Where does it come from? You might have heard of spirits being referred to as the water of life, or aqua vitae, as they would say in Latin. Well, in Irish Gaelic and Scots Gaelic, we had our own term for the water of life, and that was whisky ba. And you can say the first part of that word, whisky, was anglicised into the word whisky that we know of today. So why did the Scots and the Irish choose to spell whisky differently? Well, I think the first thing to point out is in the 1800s, that rule just didn't exist. So you can find really cool old adverts if you go online of Scotch whisky using both spellings and Irish whisky using both spellings. If you Google Laird's Scotch whisky with an E and look at the images, you will see a fantastic old advert where Scotch whisky is spelled W-H-I-S-K-E-Y. And similarly, around about the same time, Cowan's Irish Whisky were producing adverts which spelt whisky without the E. And again, you can put that into a search engine and you can see exactly what that old advert looked like. The spelling at the time would have probably been down to which dictionary your advertisers were using when it came to putting together print ads. The real change though happened after 1908. In 1908, there was a bit of a decision here in the UK to define what whisky actually was. And the reason for that is the Scotch whisky in particular had gone through a tumultuous 100 years where lots of things were changing. So in 1850, for example, it was the first time that you could blend whisky made from malted barley and whisky made from other grains. That gave birth to the blended whisky market, which essentially took over the world and led to Scotch being as popular and as exciting as it is today. The Irish, on the other hand, decided that they wanted to keep their pot still whisky pure. They didn't want to mix it with anything else. There were also rumours at the time, and there probably is a bit of evidence for this, of some scrupulous, or unscrupulous I should say, Scotch whisky distillers using non-grains to make whisky, and therefore it was decided that a definition of what whisky actually was needed to make sure that consumers and drinkers were getting a quality product that they could trust. When the ruling for that came out, the Irish decided that from that point onwards they would always spell the word whisky with an E to differentiate it from maybe some of the more questionable practices that were happening in Scotland. So there is a bit of history around why the rules for Scotch and Irish whisky exist today. When it comes to the rest of the world though, it's not quite as clear cut. A lot of it will be down to philosophy, production techniques and family history. Many people think that all American whisky is spelled the Irish way with the E, and for the vast majority of brands on the market that is true because the diaspora of people that moved into the US probably came from Ireland when it came to distillation. So they'll have followed their family roots and decided to spell it the Irish way. But the next time you're in a bottle shop, pick up a bottle of Maker's Mark and have a look at it. You'll see that there's no E in the spelling of the word whisky. And the reason for that is the Samuels family that founded Maker's Mark, they were of Scottish heritage, so they decided to go with the old Scots way of spelling the word. Moving north of the border to Canada, most of the people that moved to Canada were Scots. So again, a tip to the Scottish roots, they used the Scottish spelling W-H-I-S-K-Y for the vast majority of Canadian whisky brands. Go to the other side of the world, your other powerhouse of whisky production these days is of course Japan. Now Taketsuru, that essentially founded that industry, did all of his training in Scotland, both in Campbelltown and up in Speyside. So it made sense when the Japanese were looking to launch whisky brands that they would use the Scottish spelling. So again, The vast majority, if not all, of Japanese whiskey never use the E, they always use the Scots way of spelling it. Go down to Australia, where since 1992 there's been a craft whisky revolution, started by Bill and Lynn Lark. They were looking for a double distillation method and took great inspiration from one of their favourite distilleries, Glenfiddich, and also got a lot of help from the Glenfarclas family, the Grant family at Glenfarclas, and therefore when it came to spelling Lark whisky, they didn't use the E. And the vast majority of Australian producers out there have followed that convention. There is a little bit of a nod to Damien Mackey though. He has Irish heritage and he's triple distilling whisky down in Tasmania, so he's decided to put an E in there because he can, and also as a nod to his family heritage, his production techniques, and of course his whisky making philosophy. And I think that the final shout out that is deserved is of course our friends in Wales. There's Penderyn Distillery, and they have chosen a Welsh spelling on the back of their labels, and as is the Welsh tradition, they've taken all the vowels out. So for Penderyn, when spelling whiskey, it's W-Y-S-G-Y. Don't ask me why, just grab a glass of it, have a sniff, and see if you can work out for yourself. So in conclusion, remember, in Scotland we never use the E these days. In Ireland they always use the E. The rest of the world can choose what they want to do, and sometimes that's nods to production, to philosophy, and to family heritage. And the final thing to remember is that how the word whisky is spelt on the bottle has absolutely no effect on the aromas and the flavours that you get from the glass. It might be a good argument or discussion that lubricates your enjoyment of a glass of whiskey, but when it comes to the good stuff that is in that glass or in that bottle, that is down to the people that make it, their philosophies, their ideas, their equipment, and how they choose to run it. That's why we get some of the best whiskies in the world to enjoy, regardless of what it says on the label. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about the whisky industry, check out more of our content here at the Whisky Club. And if you have any questions about what we've spoken about today, or just any questions in general, feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you. But in the meantime, Slán Devar, cheers, and we'll see you next time.